just going to show you a demo reel that we showed at SIGGRAPH. Some of you guys may have been at SIGGRAPH, but this is all content that was done on Radeon Pro or Ryzen Pro or Threadripper. And so some of this content has actually been in theater level productions, TV shows, commercial type activities for TV commercials. But this is basically the studios that we work with and some of the design and manufacturing type customers that we work with on some of this content. So it's a pretty short clip that kind of gives you a taste of what we're already doing in this space today. Okay. We'll just jump there on one. Jump into here. All right, thanks. You want to just jump right into introductions?
Yeah. So you guys, my name is Raymond Dumbeck. I'm the Global Marketing Director for AMD.
I'm Nick Pander. I'm the Market Development Director for Radeon Pro within AMD.
All right. So we wanted to quickly jump into some Q&A and talk a little bit about what we are doing, from AMD. We talked a little bit about all of the different work that's gone into bringing Ryzen and Ryzen Pro to market. Over 4 years and over 2 million engineering hours have gone into making these products. It's a lot of investment and a lot of effort. Complete grounds-up redesign from top to bottom. The great thing about this is that the excitement that we're bringing back to the market has been expressed to us not only from our OEM partners, but also from our press and analyst friends. I'm sorry, I thought you were going to say something. I apologize. So some of the key things that we talk about, and when you look at Ryzen Pro, some of the differences between our Ryzen and Ryzen Pro products are really focused on the security features, security, manageability, and longevity of those products. Specifically, our commercial customers look for products that are going to be around 18 to 24 months, right? So we need to make sure that we're able to sustain production of these products in a high quality way. So we do a lot of sorting of the particular wafers to make sure that we're getting the top qualities or the top bins for these particular products. Then we focus on the security features that are much different than what we're doing on the consumer side, to where we're able to work in conjunction with our OEM partners to provide a series of security features bundled together in what we call GuardMI, G-U-A-R-D-M-I. Again, a series of features that include not only our 128-bit encryption engine for system memory, right? So similar to some of the hardware encryption software solutions out there, this does the same thing in our system memory. So now you're not only encrypting on your hard drive, you can encrypt in your memory system as well. We've also got our security solutions for secure boot, if you will, to where we're able to work with our OEM partners, get a signed version of their BIOS, and upon startup, we can actually suspend the x86 cores, validate that the signed BIOS or signed signature is valid for the OEM BIOS. Once we confirm that that's true, we can go ahead and let the x86 cores boot. We can do that with virtually no overhead, so less than 3% overhead, which is nothing. The great news is that helps make sure that it helps to ensure that a more secure system. Any questions on that so far?
You said some 2 million hours of engineering.
Over 2 million, yes.
So what kind of support you got from India R&D centers?
I'm sorry, say that again, please.
What kind of support you got from your own R&D centers in India?
Okay, so we do have a series of quite a few engineers in India that do a lot of work for a number of our products, not only the client-based CPUs, but also
our products as well for certification.
The Radeon technology products as well. So I don't know the exact numbers of how many engineers are there, but I know that we have a small army. A small army.
So how important is this chip level encryption for this range of products?
Well, I got to tell you, so that's one of the key things that you've got is that when you have the onboard security coprocessor, it's much different than the existing solutions that may exist or competitive solutions that exist that sit off chip, right? It helps to make the system more secure, so it doesn't enable a lot of off chip points to be able to try and pull data, right? So it's included in the silicon, helps make it a little more secure.
So what kind of additional security it provides from hackers? One of those slides in the morning saying that it will help you, it will help customers protect from hackers. So what kind of additional protection it will give?
So the key protection there, the thing that keeps you, helps work against hackers is, for example, one of the toughest things to figure out is that somebody's actually hacked your BIOS, right? And that's why when we talked about the security feature that I was just talking about, that secure boot, that's why that's so important, right? It's hard to understand that somebody's actually hacked your BIOS, but in working with our OEM partners, we can get a secure or assigned key, right? Knowing what their checksum is of that BIOS, and we can suspend boot of the system until we confirm that that BIOS is valid, according to what that signed OEM key looks like.
So
Then we can boot the system.
how important is this product as you are targeting to increase your market share in the desktop business?
When you start looking at one of the key features, and frankly, it's consumer and commercial alike, but one of the key features that people have the most concern about is around security, right? Your information in your life are typically on these systems that you work with every day. A company's IP is on their system, right? So doing the most work and taking the as much due diligence as someone can possibly do to make sure that their data and ultimately their life stays safe is, the right thing to do. By offering these key features that we talked about, the 128-bit encryption engine for our memory, as well as our security systems in conjunction with Windows 10, with our secure boot type feature to where you're able to check the checksum of the BIOS before you actually boot the 86 core or x86 cores, as well as the firmware TPM and TPM 2.0. We are offering the latest in security features in these products.
Okay. How about chipset? The existing 300 series chipset for Ryzen also uses this the Ryzen Pro, especially for the security feature. Well, do you have any new chipset for Ryzen Pro?
Well, so for example, a question that I got in a session earlier was, are these security features, this BIOS encryption, off on the chipset? No. It's part of a security coprocessor in the processor.
Yeah. About this, especially for the TPM was TPM 2.0.
Right.
The existing chipset uses external crossing. So
Same chipset, yep.
Same chipset has the capability to supporting 4 of these garden wire like TPM or such kind of errors.
So a lot of the features that we're talking about with GuardMI are actually done in our factory, and they are not done on the consumer version. They're typically done with the commercial versions of the OEM systems. So we do them in our factory and set them in our factory before they actually leave.
One confirmation. So you have the 2 versions of the chipset. One is for consumer, the other one is for OEM. And OEM version has enables all security features. The
Right.
consumer version is disables the
Right.
security. I see.
Right.
Okay.
And a lot of the security features, again, are done inside of our factory.
I see.
Yeah.
I see.
Just wondering if you've
Yes, sir.
approached Apple to offer AMD chips for their future laptops and all-in-ones and desktops.
So we do a series of work with different customers. We supply some of the graphic solutions, if you want to talk a little bit
Yeah,
about that.
pretty much on discrete graphics, they're standardized on Radeon Pro at this point, but we put the comment there, go ask Apple.
Well, I didn't think you'd be able to answer, but it's worth asking.
Hey, I don't blame anybody for asking anything at this point. You
Sure.
got it. You don't get if you don't ask, right?
That's it.
Do
That's
you
it.
want to flip so we can get to the GPU?
Yeah.
I mean, well, if you want to cover any of this in the product ones.
Well, one of the key things that we also wanted to promote is that when we start looking at our products, and notice that I think they said that there was some kind of pointer on this, right? No? Okay. The security features go up and down our complete stack, 3, 5, and 7, where our competitors actually limit that up to the top bin i5 and Core i7s. So that's something we're actually very proud of, is that we want to make sure, regardless of the type of user within an organization, they're able to access those same security features to make sure that their data stays safe.
Jump into GPU. We spoke about the WX9100 and the SSG product. Were there any questions specifically around those, or I'll just talk through workflows? So as we get to WX9100, this was our first product that enabled our Vega features on a professional platform. So we got some of the architectural differences on Vega, which greatly helps compute performance. It brings in a revised graphics core technology as well, and then we're driving the local onboard memory pretty high to 16 gigabytes, while because it's HBM memory built into the chip package, so that wasn't clear, that HBM memory is basically, when you look at the GPU ASIC itself, the 16 gigabyte of memory is packaged into that. So it's not separate memory on the board. It's built in to have a very effective board design point of view. We're able then to leverage the performance of having that memory be right next to the GPU, but then leverage the system memory to extend on, and effectively then you look at your system memory really becomes your graphics memory. The 16 gig on the board is really a cache, is what that effectively comes down to. And then the SSG takes that one step beyond, as I spoke about before, where the onboard memory effectively has that 16 gig cache still, but now you have 2 terabytes of NVMe that can be DMA accessed through an API. So you could use it as standard Windows storage or Linux storage, the 2 terabytes of NVMe, but using our API, we do block writes basically to that storage that allow things like Adobe Premiere Pro and other applications we'll announce later this year to use that as basically a cache directly on the GPU, with the advantage of you can move data from that NVMe to the GPU without touching the system PCI Express bus. So we can move data really fast. And one of the best examples we had of that is, if you guys are familiar with Red Camera, Red did some testing right before SIGGRAPH, so about a month ago, where they took 8K RAW frames, their Red RAW format, and they were able to go into Premiere Pro and start editing at full frame rate. So normally today, what ends up happening is somebody takes Red RAW, transcodes it to an intermediate format from Adobe or somebody else, and starts to manipulate that scene. So they were able to take it without transcoding the frames, use that and edit a scene. And in typical movie productions or commercials or whatever, somebody who's editing isn't going across 90 minutes of a film. They're going across a section by section by section. So the workflow, even within that 2 terabytes, works really well to go do that. And we're looking to extend that into other areas as well, like oil and gas. Some of the use cases as well we have for design and manufacturing is examples. Some of the full assembly aircraft, full assembly car models, somebody will go through and say, okay, when you're seeing the visual of the full assembled car, we're actually stripping a lot of component data in there. So if you did zoom down to the transmission, it's re-rendering the scene. What we're telling design and manufacturing ISVs is, you don't need to do stripping of the asset or the model anymore. You can load the entire data set into memory and move it from there, and manipulate it, zoom in, zoom out, and get real-time performance on that without having to load it. Any GPU focused questions, or you have any more Ryzen Pro questions? So together, from what we're really focused towards is delivering solutions. So with the Threadripper side of the Ryzen technology, we're already working with some of our system partners. You'll see Box technology out there showing a Threadripper platform with Ryzen Pro.
Radeon.
With Radeon Pro, sorry. you're gonna continue to see other engagements happen over the next year or two with other OEMs and other system partners as well. For us, it's all about getting the best performance out of the CPU for these professional workloads and getting the best performance out of the GPU, and telling those ISVs and telling those customers, you pick where the performance is needed and you take advantage of it. We're not walking into ISVs and saying you must do everything on the GPU or you must do everything on the CPU like our competitors will. We have the uniqueness of having a great CPU architecture and a great GPU architecture where we can work across those type of workloads. And one example of that is we're working with studio customers on taking their software-based renderers. What we're saying is those software-based renderers are what you see for every production film that's animation or the like. And what we're basically saying is, okay, you do all those on CPUs, but what if you took our ROCm compute APIs and you're able to use the mathematical functions in that to trim down some of the frame processing that's done where, okay, it's not using the GPU to render pixels, but it's using the GPU to help the CPU get the best performance out of it. And we're unique in that position where we can provide that kind of support to an ISV where we have the CPU expertise and the GPU expertise to help their workloads.
Can you talk a little bit about Vulkan and being able to use Vulkan to optimize for both the CPU and GPU?
Yeah, so we have the next generation API, Vulkan, which replaces OpenGL, and Vulkan inherently has shader support that can take advantage of GPU capabilities, but as well on Vulkan, there's libraries built in that can accelerate CPU type functionality within shaders and with other exposing some compute functions as well that could be on the CPU or the GPU. So a big thing for us going forward is to make sure whatever we do on the graphics side can take advantage of the underlying CPU platform as well to get the best performance, but giving the ISV a very simple path to program to that interface.
So what was unique was unique previously was that when you were talking about accelerating those types of functions using, Vulkan or DirectX or anything like that, you were talking about a GPU only story, whereas now you're talking about a GPU or CPU story, which is outstanding.
See, I have a general question, not necessarily on these products. So the mind share of AMD chips is not very great in countries like India. A general buyer thinks twice because he is not aware of the product, including myself. When my assembler suggested that I use AMD for a gaming purpose for my son, so I actually thought twice before agreeing that. I'm happy. I'm using it for the last 6 years without machine conflict because of that. But now, how actually you plan to increase the mind share of the product?
So right now you saw we have been doing a series of events, and the number of products that we've launched in 2017 is unprecedented for AMD, at least. From launching Ryzen 7, 5, 3, Threadripper, Epic, all of our different Radeon products. I mean, just a series of Radeon products that we've launched, and now today Ryzen Pro. You guys know, I mean, you've probably been to AMD events previously this year, right? Yeah. So with that, those series of events, we've created so much
Momentum.
energy and momentum with the people that actually track our industry. You saw the different, on Kevin Lensing's slide, you saw the Google Trends, how we're really getting a lot of momentum from the people who care, right? I think your question is, how are you getting the word out for the people that don't pay attention to our industry?
He's relying on us, Raymond. He's relying on us.
That's what I was about to say. That's why you're here. You are the people, are the key to getting that message out to the people that don't necessarily track our industry. You are the people that we depend on to get that message out. Your readership, your credibility, getting the right message to them, getting the right information to them, we lean on you.
Yeah, and as well on the Radeon Technologies side, so the GPU side of the house, we have a team in India that's focused, that supports both our consumer efforts and our pro efforts on mind share awareness in the market. So you see some of these esports events that have been happening, and they're getting more prevalent in countries like India now too. We're making sure we're present at those events. We have Vega-based platforms and other platforms present at those, and we're really starting to go into some of those more influencer, prosumer, gamer, blog type people, and really start to build up some awareness on that. So there's reach out that way. On the professional side, it's as simple as making sure customers understand what our offerings are. So I'll give you some examples. I've gone into about 12 automotive companies in the since I came back in March, and you know, all of them have a clear understanding of where we were, but prior to us walking in, they said, hey, we haven't heard from you guys in a long time. We had no idea. Some of them said we had no idea you were still doing professional graphics. Some said basically, hey, we picked the other guys because we never heard from you guys on what was going on. So we've corrected those type of issues. We have a 100-person globally focused enterprise sales team that just focus. They don't call on a mid-sized customer or a small. They're calling on the Fortune 1000 and the top 1000 customers worldwide, building up that awareness, getting these customers to understand our offerings on the CPU side, our data center side, on the professional graphics side as well. And so that's a big change for us as a company. That's on parity with where our largest GPU partner is as far as their enterprise sales force right now. So just to give you some perspective there, you'll start to see customers starting to notice, you know, coming into late this year, early next year, that our offerings are out there. But it's a valid point. There was a you know, lack of awareness in some markets.
And I'm wondering if you have data regarding Radeon being used in tandem with Intel, and then Radeon being used with AMD CPUs.
I mean, I won't give a data point, but what I'll give the message generally that is, you know, the CPU team is back in the market. So we'll start to see that fundamental shift of, you know, a lot of our push the last few years has been non-AMD CPUs in conjunction with our Radeon Pro. We're already starting to see that change, and the big impetus for that change is today what you saw with Ryzen Pro. For some of those people that were on the panel and the stage, you've had platforms, early access, and Threadripper. Threadripper is an immensely big reason for someone to look at an AMD CPU plus an AMD GPU solution, and before we didn't have that offering.
In one of the
5? Yep, we're good.
I know the company doesn't have the manufacturing sector of Radeon, but in future, we have a plan to set up in India and manufacturing.
Set up manufacturing in India. I have no knowledge of our intentions to set up any different manufacturing facilities, so maybe we can get back to you on that one if we need to.
I mean, just to be clear, we're a fabless semiconductor manufacturer
Exactly.
now. We no longer own our own chip production facilities now. We rely on our partners like Global Foundries and TSMC and Samsung to build chips for us. And that's intentional, so we stay very ahead of the curve on chip process.
So you compared these chips with Intel's on performance. So how do you rate price-wise?
Rate what?
Price.
I'm going to have to let you rate the price. So when you start looking at what we've done in the market, what you're going to see is that we've typically given a lot of extra performance for not a lot of price. Where we don't focus on price per se, we're more focused on the performance of the chips, because if the performance is right, the price will sell itself.
So on par with Intel's or more or less?
It depends on the specific processor, but again, you can do that research yourself and you'll determine where the price lay. Typically what you see is that our highest end processor was introduced at about half the price, roughly half the price of their top processor, and it was comparable performance. So the big question is, why would you ever pay more?
I think the key with the Ryzen Pro is that it's an OEM.
Yeah, that's on the consumer side.
We're not selling a chip.
You will not see Ryzen Pro right now. Ryzen Pro itself, right? That was on the consumer side. That statement was on the consumer side. On Ryzen Pro itself, those particular solutions are sold in conjunction with OEM partners and with system integrators. There are no plans to put that product in a PIB or box by itself in market. There's really no reason to, because the true value proposition is with OEMs and system integrators and the extra value security solutions that they provide. Make sense?
I think we're at time.
I think we're good. Yeah.
Thank you,
How
guys.
do you see your market opportunity in Southeast Asia countries like Thailand?
Southeast Asia, including China? What is it?
Thailand.
Thailand, I'm sorry. Overall, Southeast Asia is a booming market for us. The person that works for me is actually out of India that runs our Asia marketing team. And Asia in and of itself is very dynamic, a lot of energy and a lot of movement and growth in that particular market for us. So right now we see it as a very positive market to pursue, specifically, all of the Southeast Asia. I'm not sure if I answered your question. If you have a different question, let me know. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, guys.